Empress Lyra gazed out from her crystalline observatory, the swirling nebulae of the Azuran night reflecting in her violet eyes. Her purple skin shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that shifted with her mood, currently displaying the cool, detached blues of contemplation. The three moons of Azura cast their silver light across the vast metropolis below, a city of mathematical precision and technological marvels. Your luminescence, her advisor Theron, bowed deeply. The council awaits your decision on the Earth proposal. Lyra turned, her diaphanous robes flowing around her slender form. The humans wish to establish cultural exchange. A musical laugh escaped her lips. What could we possibly learn from a species that bases their decisions on such primitive concepts as love and passion? They are persistent, Empress. Their diplomatic vessel has been in orbit for 3 cycles. Very well, she sighed. I shall entertain their ambassador tomorrow. Prepare the greeting pavilion. When morning came, Lyra sat upon her levitating throne, surrounded by the 12 council elders. The Azurans valued logic, technological advancement, and emotional restraint above all else. Their society had evolved beyond what they considered the primitive needs for physical affection and emotional attachment. The doors to the pavilion slid open silently, and the human delegation entered. Lyra had expected a formal procession, but instead, a single man strode confidently into the center of the chamber. Finn Alvarez was not what the Empress had anticipated. Tall for a human, with warm brown skin and eyes the color of Earth's oceans, he carried himself with neither the arrogance nor the fear she had expected. His simple expedition uniform bore the insignia of Earth's interstellar exploration corps. Empress Lyra, he said, bowing with unexpected grace. Thank you for granting this audience. I bring greetings from Earth and proposals for mutual benefit. Your species sends just one representative? Lyra raised an elegant eyebrow. Finn smiled, a disarmingly genuine expression. Sometimes one voice can speak more clearly than many. Besides, my ship suffered damage navigating your asteroid field. The rest of my crew is making repairs. Something about his directness caught Lyra off guard. Humans were supposed to be diplomatic to the point of deception. Yet this man spoke plainly. Your proposals, then, she said, gesturing with a graceful hand as Finn outlined potential exchanges of technology, art and knowledge. Lyra found herself studying him with growing curiosity. He spoke with passion about his world, a concept the Azorans had long dismissed as inefficient and chaotic. When an unexpected solar flare disrupted the pavilion's power, plunging the chamber into darkness, panic rippled through the council. Yet before Lyra's guards could react, a small light illuminated the chamber. Finn had activated some device from his belt. No need for alarm, he said calmly. Just a power surge. Your systems will reboot momentarily. In the soft glow of his light, their eyes met across the chamber. For the briefest moment, Lyra felt something unfamiliar stir within her, a flicker of interest that went beyond diplomatic protocol. Perhaps, she said as the lights returned, her voice betraying none of her inner thoughts, there might be value in learning more about your species, after all. Finn Alvarez of Earth, I shall consider your proposals personally. As the session concluded and Finn departed, Lyra remained on her throne, troubled by her own reaction. For the first time in her 300 years of rule, something had disturbed her carefully maintained equilibrium, and that something was merely a human with kind eyes and a voice that seemed to speak directly to something long dormant within her. Range. Quarters for the human, she instructed Theron. It seems our discussions may take longer than anticipated. Finn Alvarez hadn't always been an explorer. Before joining Earth's interstellar exploration corps, he had been a renowned cultural anthropologist, dedicated to understanding the nuances of communication between vastly different societies. But after losing his research partner and wife, Maya, to a sudden illness 3 years ago, Earth had felt too small, too filled with memories. Space had offered escape and purpose now. As he settled into his quarters in the east wing of the Azuran Palace, he recorded his observations in his personal journal. The Azurans present a fascinating paradox, he spoke softly. They've advanced beyond Earth technologically by centuries, yet emotionally, they've evolved in the opposite directions. pressing rather than exploring the full spectrum of feelings. Especially intriguing is their empress, Lyra. Beneath her cool exterior, I sensed something more complex. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts, summons to the royal laboratories. When he arrived, he found Empress Lyra studying Earth's scientific archives with intense concentration. "Your species' approach to medicine is peculiar," she said without looking up. "You heal not just the body, but concern yourselves with emotions. Why waste resources on such ephemeral things?" Finn leaned against a crystalline column. "Because we've found the mind and heart affect the body. Healing one without the others is incomplete." "Inefficient," she countered, finally meeting his gaze. "Perhaps. But there's beauty in inefficiency sometimes." A flicker of something curiosity crossed her violet eyes. "Show me." Over the next few days, Finn introduced Lyra to Earth's arts, music, and literature. Though she maintained her skepticism, he noticed subtle changes, longer pauses before her dismissals. Questions that probed deeper than mere diplomatic courtesy. Their routine was shattered on the 5th day, when alarms blared throughout the palace. Rushing to the command center, they found Chaos, a massive asteroid, undetected until now, was on collision course with Azura's smallest moon. The impact would send devastating debris raining down on the planet. "Our deflector technology cannot reposition in time," Theron reported. His usual composure fractured. Finn stepped forward. "My ship has experimental gravity manipulators, not powerful enough alone, but combined with your technology." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "You would risk your vessel to save lives?" Without hesitation. For a moment, the Empress seemed genuinely puzzled by his willingness to sacrifice for strangers. Then she nodded sharply. "Prepare his ship. I will accompany him to coordinate our technologies." Hours later, as they maneuvered Finn's small craft dangerously close to the asteroid, Lyra watched him work with unwavering focus despite the danger. His hands moved steadily across the controls while he hummed a quiet melody, something he'd called a habit from nervous childhood days. "Why do you risk yourself for my people?" she asked suddenly. "'Cause I can help," he answered simply. "Wouldn't you do the same?" "My sacrifice would be logically serve my people." "You owe us nothing." Finn smiled sadly. "That's where we differ, Lyra. Humans don't always need logic to care." When their combined technologies successfully diverted the asteroid, cheers erupted from the control room back on Azura. But in the quiet of the ship's cabin, something more significant had shifted between human and Empressa, first fragile bridge across the void of understanding. The asteroid crisis changed everything, though Lyra maintained her regal bearing in public. She began requesting Finn's presence for what she termed cultural consultations with increasing frequency. Their conversations ranged from interstellar politics to the nature of human emotions, often lasting deep into Azura's long nights. "You speak of love as though it were a tangible force," Lyra remarked one evening as they walked through the palace's botanical gardens. Bioluminescent flowers cast a soft glow over her purple skin, making her appear almost ethereal. "For humans, it is," Finn replied. "As real as gravity or light, and just as measurable." There was gentle mockery in her voice, but curiosity too. "Not with instruments, no. But in actions, in choices, absolutely." A diplomatic crisis provided unexpected opportunity for deeper connection. A delegation from the neighboring Vex, hegemony long-standing rivals of Azura, arrived unannounced. Demanding access to rare minerals in Azuran territory, the Council urged immediate refusal, anticipating conflict. "I suggest a different approach," Finn said during an emergency meeting. "On Earth, we've learned that understanding motivations often reveals solutions invisible from positions of confrontation." "You suggest compromise?" An elder scoffed. "I suggest dialogue with someone who understands both perspectives," Finn countered. To everyone's surprise, Lyra assigned herself and Finn to a hazardous expedition to the contested border region. As their transport craft soared over the crystal forest separating the two territories, Lyra studied Finn's profile against the sunset. "Your approach is unorthodox," she admitted. But these tensions have persisted for generations. Perhaps new methods are worth attempting. Their journey grew perilous when a violent magnetic storm forced their vessel down in the wilderness, kilometers from their destination. With communications disrupted, they faced a difficult trek through unfamiliar terrain. As night fell, bringing plummeting temperatures, they sought shelter in a crystal cave. Finn collected luminescent fungi to provide light and warmth. "Your survival skills are unexpected for a diplomat," Lyra observed, watching him create a small heating device from their limited supplies. "I wasn't always behind a desk," he smiled. "Before studying cultures, I explored them firsthand." When Lyra shivered involuntarily, her species more sensitive to cold, Finn hesitated, then offered his expedition jacket. "Your physiology is more vulnerable than mine," he explained. "Yet you would compromise your comfort for mine." She accepted the jacket with evident confusion. "This is the inefficiency I struggle to comprehend. Is it inefficient to protect someone you?" Finn stopped himself. "Someone you value?" Something shifted in Lyra's expression. Her bioluminescent patterns, usually displaying cool blues of analytical thought, flickered briefly with warmer hues. In the silence that followed, she moved closer to him, their shoulders touching as they huddled near the makeshift heater. "Tell me about Maya," she said softly, surprising him with knowledge of his late wife's name, something he'd mentioned only once in passing, through the long night. As the storm raged outside, Finn spoke of love and loss, of the human capacity to rebuild after heartbreak. Lyra listened without interruption, her customary judgments suspended. When dawn broke, they emerged from the cave changed not just by the shared danger, but by the barriers that had dissolved in the quiet intimacy of truth freely given. As they resumed their journey, Lyra's hand brushed against Finn's, a gesture that might have seemed accidental, except for the way her fingers lingered against his for just a moment too long to be dismissed as chance. "Perhaps," she said quietly as they walked side by side, "there are forms of wisdom and emotion that logic alone cannot access." The diplomatic mission to the contested border proved unexpectedly successful. Using Finn's approach of seeking mutual benefit rather than advantage, Lyra negotiated an agreement that satisfied both Azuran and Vex's interests. When they returned to the capital, however, they found the political landscape had shifted in their absence. Elder Maruz, long opposed to any cultural exchange with humans, had marshaled significant opposition. "Your luminescence has been unduly influenced," he announced during the council session. "This human's presence has compromised your legendary objectivity." Whispers spread through the grand chamber. Lyra's bioluminescent patterns flashed with rare anger, but before she could respond, Finn stepped forward. "If I may address the council," he requested, his calm voice cutting through the tension. Lyra nodded, her expression unreadable. "Honorable elders," Finn began, "on Earth, we have a saying, fear of the unknown breeds contempt. You've built a magnificent civilization based on rational thought. But there's nothing rational about refusing to examine new perspectives simply because they challenge established beliefs. We need no lessons from a species that still wars amongst itself," Maruz countered. "Perhaps that's exactly why you should listen," Finn replied. "We've learned from our mistakes. And one of our greatest lessons is that diversity of thought leads to innovation. Your own history proves this. Your greatest advancements came during periods of cultural exchange with the Nevidian cluster." A murmur of surprise rippled through the chamber. Few outsiders knew of that ancient connection. "You've studied our history," Lyra observed, a hint of admiration in her voice. "I wished to understand your world as you've attempted to understand mine." The debate continued for hours, but something had shifted in the council's perception. When they finally voted to continue the cultural exchange program, Maruz issued a final challenge. "If humans have such valuable insights, let this one prove his worth." The mountain trials approach let him participate alongside our champions. The chamber fell silent. The mountain trials, a treacherous competition, testing both physical and mental abilities, had never included an off-worlder. "I accept," Finn said, before anyone could object. Later, in the privacy of the palace gardens, Lyra confronted him. "The trials are dangerous even for Azerons. Your physiology isn't adapted to our atmosphere at high altitudes. I know the risks, Finn replied. Then why? For the first time, genuine emotion concern bled through her controlled facade. Finn stepped closer, close enough to see the intricate patterns beneath her purple skin pulsing with agitation. Because sometimes you have to risk everything for something worth believing in. And what do you believe in, Finn Alvarez? She whispered. He reached out, hesitantly touching the back of her hand with his fingertips. The possibility that two worlds can be better together than apart. The touch sent visible ripples through her bioluminescence warm amber patterns, cascading from the contact point across her skin. For a moment, they stood frozen, the physical contact bridging more than just the space between their bodies. When the trials began, 3 days later, many expected Finn to fail early. Instead, his different approach to problems, intuitive rather than purely logic, carried him through the initial challenges. It was during the night climb of Mount Seraph that disaster struck. A sudden gravity fluctuation, a natural phenomenon on a Zur ascent. Several competitors tumbling toward a crevasse. Without hesitation, Finn secured his position and began helping others to safety. When young Azoran competitor Elio lost his grip, Finn lunged to catch him, succeeding but leaving himself dangling precariously over the abyss from the observation platform. Lyra watched in horror as Finn struggled to hold on. Protocol forbade intervention, but as his strength visibly faltered, she made an unprecedented decision. "Prepare my personal transport," she commanded. "Empress." "The rules," Theron began. "Are mine to interpret," she finished, her voice allowing no argument. By the time she reached the mountain face, Finn had managed to secure Elio, but was barely conscious from oxygen deprivation. With her own hands breaking centuries of royal tradition forbidding the Empress from direct contact with any being, Lyra helped pull him to safety. As he recovered in her arms, his breathing ragged, she whispered words meant only for him. "Some things, it seems, are worth the risk." The image of the Empress cradling the human hero spread throughout Azuran society by morning. What had begun as diplomatic necessity had transformed into something. Neither world had anticipated a connection that transcended species and challenged the very foundations of Azuran emotional philosophy. The aftermath of the mountain trials changed everything. Though Finn hadn't completed the course, his selfless actions to save young Elio, the grandson of Elder Maruz, as it happened, transformed public opinion. The opposition to human presence on Azura crumbled when Maruz himself spoke in Finn's favor during his recovery. Perhaps the elder admitted before the council, "There are strengths in the human approach we have been too hasty to dismiss." For Lyra, the change was more profound. The carefully constructed emotional barriers of centuries were dismantling themselves, one moment at a time. She found herself seeking Finn's company, not for diplomatic purposes, but for the simple pleasure of his presence. Her advisors noticed that changed her decisions now balanced. Logical precision with a newfound consideration for emotional impact. One evening, as Azura's 3 moons aligned in a rare celestial event, Lyra invited Finn to the ancient observatory tower, a place normally reserved for the Empress's solitary reflection. "My scientists tell me you'll be departing soon," she said as they gazed at the starlit horizon. "The repairs to your vessel are complete." "My mission was to establish understanding between our worlds," Finn replied. "I believe that's been accomplished." "Is that all you've accomplished here?" Her voice carried an unfamiliar vulnerability. Finn turned to face her. In the moonlight, her purple skin shimmered with patterns he'd learned to read: uncertainty, hope, and something deeper he'd never seen before. "Lyra," he said, using her name without title for the first time, "I came here believing I was running away from my past. Instead I found... ... double quotes. What did you find?" she whispered. "A future I never imagined possible." With gentle hesitation, he reached for her hand. When their fingers intertwined, the bioluminescence beneath her skin blazed with golden light that traveled up her arm and across her body in cascading waves. "This is why our ancestors feared emotion," she said softly. "Not because it's weak, but because it's powerful beyond measure." Their first kiss was tentative, a bridge between worlds that had never been crossed. As Lyra's initial uncertainty gave way to exploration, the intensity of her long-suppressed emotions manifested physically in the light emanating from her being, bathing the observatory in a warm glow visible across the capital city. By morning, the light had been seen by thousands, a phenomenon already being woven into legend by Azuran poets who had rediscovered their ancient art of emotional expression. The following weeks brought rapid change. Under Lyra's guidance, Azura established the first permanent human embassy. Educational exchanges began, with human artists and scientists arriving as Azuran logicians and technologists departed for Earth. When the day of Finn's scheduled departure arrived, the spaceport was filled with Azurans displaying something previously rare: openly emotional farewell gestures adopted from human customs. Lyra met him at his vessel, her royal regalia replaced by simpler attire suitable for travel. "Your council agreed to your request?" Finn asked, surprise evident in his voice. "They did not merely agree," she smiled, her expression now natural where once it had been practiced. "They insisted. It seems my people believe there is value in understanding Earth directly through their Empress's eyes. They're calling it the beginning of a new, philosophical age." "And what do you call it?" he asked, taking her hands in his. "A journey worth taking," she replied. "The universe is vast, Finn Alvarez. But I've learned that distance is meaningless between hearts that have found each other across galaxies." As their ship departed Azura, leaving behind a world forever changed by a single human's presence, Finn showed Lyra the stars from a new perspective, not as distant celestial bodies to be studied, but as destinations filled with possibilities. In the years that followed, the alliance between Earth and Azura became the foundation for a new interstellar community. Cultural exchange led to technological breakthroughs neither world could have achieved alone. The story of the Empress and the Explorer became a cornerstone of educational curriculum on both planets. More significant than political alliance, however, was the philosophical revolution. Azuran society rediscovered the value of emotional connection while maintaining their logical strengths. Earth learned precision of thought without sacrificing compassion. And on quiet evenings, when diplomatic duties allowed, Lyra and Finn would return to that first observatory where their worlds had truly merged. There, beneath the stars that had once separated them, they would remember how the greatest distances can be crossed by the simplest of human and not-so-human emotions. "You once mocked our legends," Finn would tease gently, and Lyra, her luminescence pulsing with the love she no longer hid, would smile and reply, "Only because I had not yet become part of one."